The sun was just dipping behind the treeline, casting long shadows across the water. I was alone at my private jetty, sipping a rare single malt, enjoying the calm after a long week. My peace, however, was about to be shattered in a way I never could have imagined. It started with a knock, or rather, a series of insistent, almost aggressive knocks on the small access gate. I frowned. Only a handful of people knew this jetty existed, fewer still had ever dared approach it. I walked cautiously toward the sound, keeping one hand near my side, though I wasn't expecting trouble. Peeking through the reinforced viewing window, I saw her, Karen. The neighborhood HOA president, notorious for her obsessive control over everyone's property. Her hair was perfectly coiffed despite the approaching dusk, and her expression was a mix of indignation and entitlement. She was holding a clipboard, her finger wagging as if she were addressing an army rather than a lone civilian. "Excuse me," she said, her tone sharp, bordering on hostile. "You need to open this gate immediately. HOA regulations require." I cut her off with a calm, measured tone. "This jetty isn't part of the HOA. You can't enter." Karen's eyes narrowed. "I don't care. I'm within my rights. I demand access." There was a dangerous energy in her voice, the kind that made me take a half step back. Normally, dealing with HOA complaints was tedious, but there was something about the way Karen carried herself that suggested she wouldn't stop until she got exactly what she wanted. And that's when I realized something terrifying: she had no idea what this place really was. I've spent years keeping this jetty secret. On the surface, it looks like a serene, private waterfront property. In reality, it conceals one of the most classified military operations in the region. The gates, the surveillance cameras, the unassuming storage sheds, they're all part of a system designed to monitor and defend critical national assets. One wrong move from Karen, and she wouldn't just be trespassing, she'd be walking straight into a restricted military zone. I had to think fast. "Karen," I said, lowering my voice, "if you step through this gate, you'll be breaking federal law. I'm asking you, politely, for the last time, turn around." Her smirk twisted into something darker, almost daring. "Or what?" In that moment, the calm evening dissolved into tension so thick it could be cut with a knife. I realized I had to act, and fast, because once she crossed that invisible line, there would be no turning back. Karen didn't turn. Instead, she planted her hands firmly on the gate, leaning forward as if sheer determination could bend steel. Her eyes were locked on me, defiant, daring. "I'm not leaving until I see what's behind this gate." "You can't hide anything from the HOA," she spat, as if the letters HOA carried some kind of legal omnipotence. I felt a surge of dread. Every fiber of my training screamed that this was bad, really bad. The jetty isn't just a dock, it's a perimeter. Sensors buried along the edges, invisible to the casual observer, had already detected her approach. Cameras, motion detectors, even infrared scanners, the whole system was alive, silently watching her every step. But she didn't know any of this. To her, it was just a fancy, private waterfront. To me, every second she lingered was a potential catastrophe. I swallowed hard, trying to maintain a calm voice. "Karen, step back. For your own safety." She laughed, a sharp, piercing sound that carried across the water. "Safety? Don't act like I'm scared of you. Or whoever else is hiding here." I clenched my fists, knowing words alone wouldn't work. Reaching under the counter by my side, I activated the secondary security system, a series of lights that turned the jetty into a maze of glaring warning signs. Loudspeakers crackled to life: "Restricted area. Turn back immediately. You are trespassing on a military installation." Karen froze, her face blanching slightly. But only for a second. Then she waved off the warnings. "Military installation? Don't make me laugh. You're just trying to scare me." That's when the first automated deterrent triggered. Hidden pressure plates beneath the dock caused a series of small, non-lethal shock pulses, not enough to harm, but enough to make her step back. She yelped and stumbled, her hand fumbling for the gate latch. The realization finally hit her: this wasn't just a private property dispute. Whatever lay behind that gate wasn't for HOA inspections, and it certainly wasn't for nosy neighbors. From my vantage point, I could see her hesitation growing. Yet stubbornness, that infamous HOA Karen trait, was stronger than fear. She recovered, brushing herself off, her gaze scanning the jetty for weak points. Every step she took triggered more sensors, more alerts. Somewhere deep in the compound, silent alarms had already begun signaling intrusion protocols. I knew I had mere minutes, maybe seconds, before higher-level security measures activated. And if she didn't back down now, there would be consequences far beyond a simple HOA warning letter. I took a deep breath and prepared to escalate. "Karen," I said firmly, "this is your final warning. Turn around. Now." She smirked again, but this time, uncertainty flickered in her eyes. The night was about to get a lot more dangerous and a lot more revealing. Karen's smirk faltered, but only for a heartbeat. She took another step forward, and that was all it took. The first line of the jetty's automated defenses sprang to life with a soft whirring, almost imperceptible, but I knew every inch of the system. Hidden panels slid open along the dock, revealing non-lethal deterrent devices designed to neutralize intruders without causing permanent harm. A sharp beam of light cut through the dusk, illuminating Karen in stark white. Motion sensors locked onto her, and an electronic voice boomed from concealed speakers: "Warning. You are trespassing on a restricted military installation. Cease movement immediately." Her eyes widened, and for a fleeting moment, I thought she might finally back down. But Karen isn't the type to retreat. Instead, she yanked out her phone, muttering something about filming evidence and exposing me. Clearly, she thought social media could intimidate a military-grade system. I exhaled slowly. It was almost comical until the next stage triggered. Beneath the water, small sonar-activated devices created waves of pulsating energy. Nothing lethal, just enough to create a disruption in the dock's structure, forcing her to step carefully. Every footfall she took set off a new alert, each recorded by a secure network that was linked directly to military monitoring. Then it happened, the first real human response. From behind a concealed perimeter, two security operatives emerged, moving silently but with authoritative precision. Their dark uniforms blended with the shadows, and they carried nothing more than tactical flashlights, but the way they approached made it clear: anyone crossing this boundary without clearance wouldn't leave without an explanation. Karen froze completely now, caught between her stubbornness and the undeniable reality of the situation. The smugness that had fueled her audacity evaporated, replaced by a mix of fear, confusion, and disbelief. She looked at me as if I were the villain of a story she hadn't prepared for. "Miss, one of the operatives began, his voice calm but commanding, "this area is strictly off limits. You need to step back immediately, or we'll have no choice but to escort you off-site." Karen opened her mouth to argue, but words failed her. Her usual weapon confidence was useless here. Not against machines designed for precision, not against humans trained to enforce the law, and certainly not against secrets she could never have imagined existed. I realized then that the situation had escalated far beyond an HOA confrontation. Karen had unknowingly stumbled into a world most civilians could only read about in classified documents. One wrong move now, and the consequences would be catastrophic for her, for me, and possibly for national security. Karen's face was a mixture of shock, disbelief, and that stubborn fury that had defined every HOA encounter I'd ever had with her. But now, none of her usual tactics, yelling, threatening, waving her clipboard, worked. The reality of the situation was sinking in: she had crossed a line she could never uncross. The operatives flanked her carefully, their presence a silent reminder that this was no longer a neighborhood dispute. Behind us, the jetty hummed with barely audible activity. Hidden panels opened along the deck, revealing surveillance arrays, encrypted communication devices, and sensors that could detect even the smallest movement underwater. The calm waters, which had always lulled visitors into a false sense of security, were now part of a sophisticated perimeter defense system. Karen swallowed hard, glancing at the water, then back at me. I just wanted to film the jetty, I finished for her, my voice even but firm. You wanted proof to the HOA that I was hiding something. Now you have proof, but not the kind you imagined. Her eyes widened as a soft, rhythmic beep echoed across the deck. It was subtle at first, barely noticeable, but instantly recognizable to me. The final security protocol was activating, a combination of sonar, motion detection, and automated drones beginning patrols above the water. Each drone was equipped with non-lethal deterrents capable of safely incapacitating intruders, and right now, Karen was directly in their scanning zone. I saw her realization hit like a bolt of lightning. "Oh my God," she whispered, her voice trembling. This is military." "Yes," I said quietly, watching her stumble back. "A top-secret base. This isn't just a jetty. Everything you see, the gates, the water sensors, the lighting, they're all part of a highly classified perimeter system. One wrong step could have triggered protocols far more serious than this warning." Her confident posture crumbled entirely. She clutched at her clipboard as if it could shield her from the consequences of ignorance. I didn't know," she stammered. This is insane." The operatives motioned for her to step back. Slowly, reluctantly, she obeyed, inching away from the restricted zone as the drones hovered silently above, scanning. Every movement she made was monitored, analyzed, recorded. The absurdity of her previous threats, lawsuits, HOA fines, social media posts fell away. Here, in the shadow of real authority and real danger, none of it mattered. I let her pause at the edge of the restricted area, her breathing uneven. For the first time, she looked genuinely afraid, her entitlement stripped away, replaced with the humbling realization that some things are bigger than any HOA, any neighborhood squabble, any personal vendetta. And yet, something about Karen's defiance remained, that dangerous spark that could ignite trouble if underestimated. Karen stood trembling at the boundary of the restricted zone, but even fear couldn't fully extinguish the spark of defiance simmering in her eyes. Her breathing was tense, shallow. The operatives waited for her to retreat, their stance firm but patient. For a moment, it looked like she might finally accept defeat. But Karen was Karen. And if there was one thing she never did, it was back down quietly. "I'm not leaving," she suddenly snapped, her voice cracking but determined. "You can't threaten me with fake soldiers and fancy toys. I know my rights." The operatives exchanged a subtle, knowing look, one that said they'd dealt with this type before, but never in a classified zone. Karen clutched her clipboard tighter, lifted her chin, and unbelievably took a step forward. Her foot crossed over an invisible boundary marker built into the dock. To the untrained eye, it was nothing. But to the base? It was everything. Within seconds, the air shifted. A low hum vibrated through the planks. Soft blue light snapped on in a perfect line, creating an unmistakable perimeter glow. Below the water, drones surfaced, forming a silent, intimidating formation. Above us, two aerial reconnaissance units descended from their patrol routes, hovering with mechanical precision. Karen froze again, but her stubborn pride forced her to keep talking. "I'm not afraid of your little gadgets. You can't stop me from inspecting this place. I'll have the entire HOA down here." Her sentence was cut short by a sharp, metallic crack. Not a weapon, just a security barrier deploying, forming a semi-transparent energy shield across the path behind her. She jumped back as it flickered to life, trapping her between two military-grade defense lines. One of the operatives stepped forward. "Ma'am, you have now entered a classified federal boundary. You are required to comply immediately. Continue advancing, and the system will escalate." Karen's bravado shattered. Panic washed over her face in waves. I didn't mean to, this wasn't, I just wanted to check the jetty." I stepped beside her, my voice low. "Karen, this is no longer a neighborhood issue. You triggered multiple defense protocols. If you don't calm down and follow instructions, things will get a lot worse." Tears welled in her eyes now, not from sadness, but from the sheer terror of realizing how deeply she'd overstepped. She looked around wildly at the drones, the shield, the operatives, the humming machinery, all the pieces of a hidden world she was never meant to see. Then, in a desperate move fueled by blind panic, she lunged toward the gate, toward the most sensitive part of the perimeter. And the base reacted instantly. The moment Karen lunged toward the gate, everything shifted. The base didn't hesitate, not for a breath, not for a heartbeat. A deep mechanical thrum rolled through the jetty like distant thunder, and suddenly every layer of the security system snapped into full lockdown mode. The aerial drones reconfigured their formation with razor-sharp precision, dropping lower until their lenses pointed directly at Karen. The water drones shifted into a defensive half-circle, blocking any path toward the shoreline. The soft blue warning lights intensified into a vivid red glow, bright, urgent, unmistakable. Karen froze mid-step, her breath hitching. What is happening?" she whimpered. One of the operatives raised a hand, signaling her to stop moving. "Ma'am, you've triggered Level 3 security protocols. Please stand still." "Level 3. Karen repeated, her voice trembling. "That sounds bad." "It is," I said quietly, stepping toward her. "Level 3 means the system now considers you an active breach risk." Karen's trembling worsened. I'm not a threat. I didn't mean to, please just turn it off." But turning it off wasn't an option. Not now. Once Level 3 activated, the only way to safely deactivate the system was through biometric clearance, remote authorization, and a full perimeter sweep. The jetty wasn't just sealed, it was isolated. No civilian could leave until the system verified every possible variable. A pair of reinforced panels slid open near the waterline. What looked like harmless storage compartments revealed their true nature: stabilized pulse emitters, non-lethal but powerful deterrence units designed for incapacitation. They weren't firing, but their activation lights flashed, ready to respond if Karen made even one unsafe move. Karen dropped her clipboard, her entire body shaking. "Please," she whispered, "make it stop." "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know." "I believe you," I said, keeping my voice calm and steady. "But the system doesn't operate on intent. It operates on protocol." The operative slowly approached her, their movements controlled and deliberate. "We need to escort you to the containment point," one instructed. "Do not resist. Do not run. Do not reach for anything." Karen nodded frantically, too terrified to speak. As they guided her toward the secure holding position near the jetty entrance, the drones moved in synchronized patterns above and around her, recording every step, analyzing her posture, scanning for threats she could never possibly possess. The gate behind her sealed shut with a heavy metallic clank. And then, for the first time since the chaos started, the base's intercom crackled alive with a message I'd been dreading. "Security breach acknowledged. Command authorization required. All personnel prepare for central inspection." It was no longer just about Karen. The entire base was now mobilizing. The intercom's message echoed across the jetty, its cold mechanical tone slicing through the air. Karen flinched as if struck. She clung to the railing near the containment point, her knuckles white, her breathing erratic. The operative stood on either side of her, calm, composed, but undeniably tense. They knew what came next. Command was on its way. And once command arrived, every second of this incident would be dissected. Every action examined. Every breach accidental or otherwise handled with absolute severity. I felt the weight of responsibility settle heavily on my shoulders. I had tried to keep the jetty quiet, hidden, sealed behind layers of secrecy and misdirection. But Karen's intrusion had shattered that calm. Now, for the first time in years, the base was waking up not just its automated defenses, but its people. A low rumble grew beneath the boards, vibrating up through our feet. Moments later, an armored transport emerged from the tree lean beyond the shoreline path. The matte black vehicle glided forward on silent tires, its angular design absorbing the fading light. No insignia. No plates. Just power and purpose. Karen gasped as the doors opened. Who are they? The people who handle situations like this, I said quietly. 3 figures stepped out, each dressed in tactical uniforms that were far more advanced than anything the earlier operatives wore. Their helmets bore reinforced visors, and their movements were precise, almost unnervingly synchronized. This was Command's Rapid Response Unit. The final authority on perimeter breaches. Their leader approached first. Tall, steady, and radiating the kind of controlled intensity that made even the air seem to tense around him. He stopped in front of me, lifted his visor, and locked eyes with a stare sharp enough to carve through steel. "Brief me," he said. I swallowed. Civilian intrusion. HOA dispute escalated. She crossed the perimeter markers and triggered level 3. His jaw tightened. Intentional. No, I answered immediately. Ignorance. Stubbornness. But not malice. Karen tried to speak, but her voice cracked. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know what this place was. The commander turned his gaze on her, analyzing her as though she were a puzzle piece that didn't quite fit. Every intruder says they didn't know, he said calmly. But protocol requires verification. Karen paled. Verification? What does that mean? It means, he said, stepping closer, you will undergo a full threat assessment. No exceptions. The drones overhead rotated into a new formation. The water drones tightened their protective circle. The sky darkened further, as if the world itself braced for what would come next. Karen trembled, staring at me with pleading eyes. Please, help me. But even I wasn't sure I could. Karen was shaking so hard her knees threatened to buckle, but the commander wasted no time. He motioned to the operatives, who gently but firmly guided her into the designated assessment zone, a small, circular platform embedded with biometric sensors. From a distance, it looked like nothing more than reinforced flooring. But up close, faint pulses of blue energy rippled across its surface like heartbeat waves. Karen's voice quivered. What is that thing? The verification deck, the commander replied. It scans for weapons, contraband, implants, chemical agents, foreign devices, and any anomalies that could compromise national security. Karen blinked rapidly. Implants? Chemical what? I'm a homeowner. I don't even take vitamins. I stepped forward, hoping to calm her. It won't hurt you. Just stand still and let it process. But she wasn't listening. Panic drowned out every rational word. The moment her feet touched the deck, the system came alive. A pale cylinder of light rose from the floor, surrounding her in a translucent sheath. The air hummed with electromagnetic pulses, scanning her body from all angles. She whimpered. Please stop. I swear I didn't mean anything. I just wanted to enforce HOA rules. The commander raised a brow. HOA rules, he repeated, almost incredulous. You trespassed on a classified federal installation, for HOA rules. Karen nodded frantically, tears streaking down her cheeks. He has a jetty. And rules say. Ma'am, he interrupted, your neighborhood regulations have zero jurisdiction here. This facility predates your HOA by 15 years. It operates under federal authority. The scanner beeped sharply once, then twice. Data streamed across the holographic interface that materialized in front of the commander. He studied it with practiced precision. No weapons. No devices. No implants. No illicit materials. He lowered the display, his expression unreadable. Civilian. Untrained. No affiliations. Karen exhaled shakily, relief flooding her face too soon. But her emotional state is highly unstable, the second operative noted, watching the readings. Stress levels off the charts. Could become unpredictable. Karen broke completely. I'm not unstable. I'm scared. Anyone would be scared. I stepped forward cautiously. Commander, she didn't intend harm. She's just reckless, he finished. And reckless civilians compromise security more than hostile ones. The words hung in the air like a blade. Karen grabbed the railing beside her, desperate. Please. I can leave. I'll never come back. I won't even mention this place ever. The commander studied her for a long, tense moment. Then he turned to me. Her fate depends on you, he said quietly. You brought her here whether by accident or negligence. So you will decide the next step. My stomach dropped. Karen stared at me, eyes wide with terror and trust. The commander's words hit me harder than the lockdown alarms ever could. Her fate depends on you. The words echoed in my mind as if the entire jetty had fallen silent just to highlight them. Karen stared at me from inside the verification deck, her eyes wide, pleading, terrified in a way I had never seen from her, not even during her loudest, most unhinged HOA tirades. I took a slow breath. I hadn't asked for this responsibility, but I had been entrusted with it. This jetty wasn't just a property line, it was a boundary to a world built on secrecy, discipline, and consequences far beyond neighborhood squabbles. But Karen. She was a menace, yes. Entitled, intrusive, reckless, and endlessly irritating. But she wasn't a threat. She wasn't a spy. She wasn't trained. She was just catastrophically stubborn. And tonight, stubbornness had thrown her into the jaws of something she couldn't even begin to understand. I choose de-escalation, I finally said. She's not a danger. She's a civilian who made a stupid mistake. The commander studied me, expression unreadable. De-escalation requires your full accountability. Meaning her release is tied to your authorization. If she violates secrecy, you assume responsibility. I nodded. I understand. He turned to the operatives. Release her from the deck. System downgrade to level 1. Stand down non-lethal deterrence. The hum around us softened. The drones retreated, drifting into dormant positions. The red perimeter lights dimmed back to blue. The energy shield dissolved with a soft crackle. Karen collapsed to her knees the moment the scanning field lifted, sobbing from sheer exhaustion. The operatives helped her to her feet and guided her toward me. You're free to go, the commander said to her, though his tone left no room for misinterpretation. But understand this, what you saw tonight does not exist. You will speak of it to no one. Not your board. Not your neighbors. Not your family. Karen nodded rapidly. I won't. I swear. I'll forget this ever happened. I'll pretend this jetty doesn't even exist. The commander glanced at me once more. Your judgment stands. But this will be recorded. Then he turned and disappeared with his unit, the armored transport vanishing into the tree line as silently as it had arrived. Karen wiped her face, trembling. I'm sorry, she whispered. I didn't know. I thought you were just ignoring HOA rules. I sighed heavily. Karen, Sometimes the world is bigger than your clipboard. She managed a tiny nod. I'll leave you alone. Forever. And for the first time ever, she meant it.